I reached out to over 200 AAA devs, indie devs, content creators, and gaming journalists about the growing influence of artificial intelligence, live service, and over-corporatization in the industry, all of which culminating in what could be the most important conversation our community could have right now. Because what we decide to do today could very well shape how we buy, create, and enjoy games in the future. Hello crows and non-crows alike, my name is Joe Mac, and today we're going to have a conversation about AI, live service, and the over-corporatization in the gaming industry, and what we can do to create positive change, because if we leave it up to somebody else, chances are it's not going to happen. I started this conversation with the video game industry needs to change video over 2 weeks ago. Since then, I reached out to well over 200 AAA devs, indie devs, content creators, and game journalists from multiple different backgrounds and areas of interest. I spoke out into the void, and the void answered back. Kinda. Out of those 200 plus people, how many would actually do the survey that I gave them? Disappointing, but understandable. I'm not exactly a well-known figure, and I'm randomly showing up and asking some very sensitive topics about their jobs. Which is why, given the nature of this conversation, and given the sensitive relationship these people may or may not have with certain publishers, I have promised that I would not share their identities. I understand that hurts my credibility, but safety comes before all else here. Also, before we get too far along, I want to make it clear that this video exists because I genuinely care about our community, the gamers that play games and the devs that make them. Not only because I'm a content creator that depends on good games having good content, but also because I'm a game dev student with an interest in creating good games full of good content. So to be clear, the intention of this video is not to drag up industry drama or to air out anyone's dirty laundry. If that is something you're looking for, then I recommend looking elsewhere. Another thing to know before we get really started is that this video is going to be using AI generated voiceovers to speak for the people that submitted a survey. This does two things. It helps illustrate a point I'm going to be making when we reach the topic of artificial intelligence, and it demonetizes the video. According to the latest changes on YouTube, any video, including this one, that uses AI voiceovers will not be eligible for monetization. It doesn't matter how many views or likes or subs or hours of watch time this video gets. None of it will be counted towards eligibility, and I honestly don't care. The most important thing about this video is the analysis, the conversation, and the call to action. Everything else is in the wind. And lastly, we cover topics that are very critical of the game industry. As a gamer, you might be wondering why you should care about what happens in the industry as long as you get to play your games. And as a developer, you might think that gamers shouldn't concern themselves with the industry because we don't know how to build games ourselves. If you enjoy playing games or creating games, then the 2 points kinda cancel out either way. From my perspective, if the industry is healthy and good in creating good games, then there's more good games to buy. And the happier gamers are to buy and play said games, the more likely they are to buy even more set of good games. So the healthier the industry, the more likely good games will be released. More successful releases hopefully promote a healthier industry. Right, with all that out of the way, let's get truly started. One of the first questions across all the surveys regards to how things have changed over time. When I asked the content creators how the gaming community has changed over the years they've been creating content, this is what they had to say.
Just like the rise of Instagram, the gaming space feels more corporatized and polished. And even though there have always been problems with inclusivity, the cycles of these discussions feel more scripted and predictable. I'm not sure how specific this dynamic is to the gaming community, or if it's just where we are at this stage of constant online connectedness, because it's pretty bad everywhere.
Yes, I think in a lot of ways it's evolved. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. I think it's more organized and streamlined, whether it's forums, ways of communicating, or helping each other, etc. In some ways bad, certain algorithms have led to different groups having a higher say than others, but overall it's definitely changed in how streamlined it is.
Those are the viewpoints of content creators on the community. But I also asked the game devs how game development has changed over the years.
It has become flashier and even more focused on visual performance and visual quality. The latest Unite event showed that the engine could compete with Unreal for real-time cinematics.
In general, I think there are 3 broad phases to a new industry that are roughly analogous to a military operation. The first phase is the commando phase, where early pioneers break into new territory without a lot of rules or guidelines as to what they are doing. The industry gets its start with them. In games, this would be from about 1970 to 1995. The second phase is the infantry phase. This is where ground is taken, rules and frameworks are established, genres and development protocols defined, and growth is forward and upward. This is the phase I most closely identify with, and I think it begins with the shift caused by the PS1 towards a home market. It runs from 95 to 2020 or so. The third phase is the policing phase, which is where we seem to be now. Rules are in place. Processes and systems are designed around maintaining and measuring product progress and viability in relation to funds and marketing. Original design and innovation is generally seen as not cost-effective.
With change comes a lot of growth one way or another, as one could imagine. For anyone tending a garden, they'll tell you that growth is a good thing. But what about corporate growth? Is corporate influence an ever-growing weed that is taking over the garden? Or is it the fertilizer that produces the harvest? When I asked if over-corporatization in gaming has had a negative impact on the gaming community, the content creators had this to say.
Over-corporatization ruins nice things everywhere in our society. When wealth or power is consolidated, it moves further away from local needs and wants in service of putting profits over people. There are plenty of examples across industries that always result in either mass layoffs, a poor or underdeveloped product, or both. I think the gaming industry has been the most shocking to me because I cannot understand how thousands of people lose their jobs every year, especially those who work for massive companies like Microsoft. Additionally, corporatized products often err on making safe bets, meaning less innovation, less boundary pushing, and less artistic risks that can make games incredible forms of interactive media. So we get boring or buggy products while funneling our money to the top. Rinse and repeat. Meanwhile, the most impactful games I've played over the last couple of years have been made by independently operated studios. Baldur's Gate 3 by Larian Studios, Blueprints by Dagobah and Claire Obscur.
I honestly think so. I think corporate entities have sucked a lot of the passion and creativity away from developers. Games are less creative, in my opinion, than ever before as a whole. And that seeps into the gaming community. When there's, say, 5 games that dominate everything, all in the same genre, and granted they can be extremely popular, those mindsets, that kind of culture takes over the communities. And that's largely all you get. So I do think it bleeds through in a way, all starting with executives limiting risks and focusing less on the art and more on the profits.
And when I asked the game devs if over-corporatization was having a negative impact on the gaming industry, here's what they had to say.
Yes, I think the AAA corporate game industry is in decline as it has shifted into its policing phase. That's not to say that I think gaming is in trouble, because it is doing just fine. It is just shifting away from being a high-cost, overblown, huge team operation into becoming an industry based around indie titles and smaller studios. The overhead costs, both in terms of money and in terms of creativity, of being policed by corporations is too high. The need for big teams and deep publisher pockets will soon no longer be needed to make high-end AAA games. Big corporate game teams are dying. Smart developers should be adjusting to this already.
No, the reality is that most people want the financial stability of being corporatized. Corporations survive because they sell what the audience wants. Indies thrive when the audience wants what the developers love, which does require some luck.
But whichever way you slice it, everything has its pros and cons. From my perspective, it appears that if you are working for a corporation that is respectable and values its members, then you're in for a good time. That being said, when you move over to the other side of the situation, things can go from bad to hellfire very quickly. And even if you are in a good relationship with your publisher today, that doesn't necessarily mean you'll be tomorrow, as was the case with Romero Games, which was a 100-plus member team led by industry legend John Romero, who are now all looking for another way to fund their ambitions or find another job entirely. and perhaps the closure of Monolith Productions, who were working on a Wonder Woman game, before Warner Brothers took the lasso away from them. Monolith was one of 3 studios that were shut down, with another being Player First Games, who developed the live service game Multiverses, which ended the same way most new live service games do these days. On this channel, we've talked here and there about the concerns of live service, especially when it comes to BioWare and Electronic Arts. A lot of subscribers recently joined because of the video I posted talking about the Anthem servers closing down. Anthem being yet another live service project that never met the expectations of its publisher. In the video, The Game Industry Needs to Change, I make my opinions of the live service slot machine rather clear. However, I was also interested in hearing what everyone else had to say. So I asked them in their surveys, what were their opinions of live service and if they preferred a traditional game over a live service one.
We're working on a traditional project, no live service, and it's more fun. We're now thinking about the flow of unlocked levels and unlocked vehicles in sequence. Instead of the chaos of hundreds of skins to be paid for, it's more like constructing a novel.
I'm a single-player gamer for the most part, mostly because I like to experience different worlds.
Both kinds of games have their pluses and minuses, but I generally prefer to work on games that follow a traditional model.
Always one-and-done games over live service. But I can play a few live service games. They aren't inherently evil.
It is true that live service games are not inherently evil. We've seen many good live service games actually succeed where so many have failed. In the end, a game has to be a good game, which has to be the intention of not just the developers creating the game, but also the publishers that are trying to sell it. The advancement of technology and game development through history go hand in hand. Every decade in gaming history sits on a technological achievement and the intentions behind it. But what happens when a technological advancement is so promising and the intentions behind it are not so altruistic? This is where we get into artificial intelligence, a powerful tool that many people have many different opinions and plans for. For me personally, AI is a concern. We already have publishers that take the safe approach when it comes to new ideas. They constantly lose at the live service slot machine, and are more than willing to lay off hundreds of people to save some money. I don't see the intentions for AI on their side being any good. I'm also concerned as a college student. I'm interested in writing for games, level design, motion capture, animation, maybe even some voice acting, all of which has some kind of AI actively being worked on to just do all that work altogether. And that's my viewpoint on it, but what do the other content creators think? I asked them, are you concerned about artificial intelligence and its use in the gaming industry? And here's what they had to say.
Yes, I'm concerned about the use of AI in our art and entertainment, including gaming. To me, it feels like the gaming industry is already fragile and bad at taking care of its people. So what's to stop corporate-backed projects from reducing human costs in exchange for a smaller budget while still charging the same high amount? However, one of my friends is a game designer who has been more open to using AI as a tool to assist with streamlining workflows. I am not a game designer, so I'm not sure what the nuances are for using AI on a project. I am, however, very against AI being used to make the rich richer or to strip human labor away from the creation process.
I am. I think it can be used in harmony to speed up certain elements of creating games. But at least in the short term, it feels like companies are using AI solely as replacements for workers.
When I asked the same question to the game devs, I got a couple of interesting perspectives.
Yes, and it will replace thousands of them in all areas: art, production, coding, management, QA sound, music, modeling, etc. The solution to this, however, is to get out in front of the wave and embrace the AI as augmentations to be utilized. It is time for game developers to start to generalize again and get to know all aspects of development, rather than specialize into one narrow field.
No, mainly because the firings right now are due to free AI services. Once the true cost of AI services are uncloaked, mid-level and senior-level art jobs will be back in full effect. Why spend $100 on tokens rolling the dice on your results when you could spend $100 getting a usable result the first time? Also, programs like Unity and Houdini are integrating ML tools to speed up artist workflows. I see concept artists using ML to generate full concept art from their sketches.
AI can be a great thing if it's used as a tool that doesn't straight up replace its craftsmen. It can be a dream come true in the right hands and a total nightmare in others. Others, such as publishers who put profits over people, who believe microtransactions make their games better, and overall dehumanize the gaming industry, both figuratively and literally, as was the case just last week when Microsoft laid off level designers and replaced them with AI software that was built by the level designers they just laid off. And not just in the industry, but this is happening kinda everywhere. I reached out to over 50 game journalists to ask for their participation in this survey, but not a single person wanted to voice their opinion on AI, which is interesting considering that I can just pull up ChatGPT right now, type in, "Please write an IGN-style article on why replacing human game journalists with AI bots is a good thing," and there you go. Over and done with in less than a minute. But it's not all doom and gloom. In the right hands, AI can be a godsend, as long as it's done in the right way. The AI voices that you have heard speaking for those that have done the survey come from Epidemic Sound, which has a new AI voice tool. This is not a sponsorship, I'm just providing information by the way. Epidemic has partnered up with voice actors to create this tool and compensate them accordingly. I'm using someone else's voice with their permission, and I'm able to utilize different voice acting without breaking my budget. To many people, AI is just instantly evil. It must be banned everywhere. And to others, it's the miracle cure-all drug that can solve all their problems. Like for all great leaps of technological advancement, the answer is in the middle. And I believe we as a community need to work together to guide others in that direction. AI can give a voice to those that have lost theirs. It can provide special service to those that can't afford it. It can help with research and process information at speeds that humans simply can't achieve. However, if a publisher can't afford a human level designer, then they should pay to have one. AAA projects are funded by the millions, and we, as a gaming community, pay back those millions with profit, with our own money. I think we deserve millions of dollars worth of human effort in a AAA game, especially if it's going to cost us $80 per title. Whether or not AI in the gaming industry 10 years from now becomes like the Terminators or not, is a consequence of our choices today. Because if we leave it in the hands of the corpos and everyone else to make that decision, then they are going to make that decision for themselves. And I don't think we're gonna like it in the long run. We've reached a point in the conversation where we start talking about some solutions. When it comes to the issues that are impacting the game industry side of the community, that is something I can't really do anything about. In fact, while approaching people for this project, I did come across 2 game devs who did not do the survey, but were very passionate in their message that I should just leave it alone. That since I'm not a game developer myself, then I have no right getting involved and or even remotely caring about the industry, and that I should just keep my business to myself. And I agree. I might be a game design student, but I'm still years away from being an actual game dev with any worthwhile experience. And while I appreciate the game devs that have taken the survey, I can't form a well-educated plan of what needs to happen with just 2 perspectives. If the game industry needs to change, then it is up to the game developers to put their foot down and make those changes themselves. On the other hand, on the everyday gamer content creator side of the community, that's a different story, or rather a different side of the market. As contributors to this market that greatly impact the industry, there is something we can do. In the survey for the content creators, I asked them the following questions. If a video game is a live service product, do you believe there should be visible labeling on the box art and digital marketing of the game, indicating that it is a live service product?
Yes, it's in the consumer's interest to be informed about what they are purchasing.
100%. I'd go even further and say if it's a live service, there should be a visible labeling, saying the game can be turned off at any point, and make that abundantly clear.
If a live service is no longer being supported by its developer, do you believe there should be a product disclaimer stating such before someone buys that product?
Yes, there should be a disclaimer, and it should be part of government regulations or some industry entity guidelines, kind of like how the ESRB was created. Now that I say that, AI labels could also fall under the purview of ESRB, PEGI, USK, etc. Again, it's important to communicate to consumers about the product. And if there is a pattern where more live service games get shut down without a way to play it than non-live service games, then that may shift consumer behavior as it should.
Absolutely. Something that says updates and support for the product have been terminated.
And lastly, if the majority of a game's development is done with artificial intelligence, should the price of that game be the same as one that is mostly developed by people?
Absolutely not. We have been working more efficiently with new technologies over the last several decades without appropriate compensation, more money, less hours, etc. I would be in strong favor of laws or regulations that require disclosure of AI-developed games, though I know there would be people who try to find loopholes or workarounds.
Absolutely not. I do understand it would take money to be put into AI, but if the game has half the dev team as normal, it should not cost as much, considering much of the asking price of games is to pay back the development cost that is largely workers' salaries.
There's also the basic truth one commenter on a previous vid pointed out. Vote with your wallet. There is no video game industry without the people in the market willing to buy from them. However, it's hard to vote with your wallet if you don't know what's in the product you're buying. So here is a step I believe is in the right direction. Inspired by the Stop Killing Games movement, I have created a petition called labelourgames. This petition, once it reaches enough signatures, will be sent to the Entertainment Software Rating Board, or ESRB, demanding that they add these 3 things to the regulations. Number 1, if a video game is considered a live service product, then a label indicating such must be placed next to the ESRB label on the box art of the product in any digital marketing. And a disclaimer must be acknowledged by the purchaser prior to the purchase of the product in an online storefront. Number 2, if a video game utilizes artificial intelligence to develop level design, narrative and technical writing and voice acting in lieu of actual human participation, with a project budget that exceeds over $1 million, then a label indicating such must be placed next to the ESRB label on the box art of the product in any digital marketing. And lastly, number 3, if a video game that is considered a live service product and that service has been discontinued, then that product must be pulled from physical storefronts, and a disclaimer of discontinuation must be acknowledged by the purchaser prior to the purchase of the discontinued live service product. Again, it's hard to vote with your wallet if you don't know exactly what you're buying or how it was made. I was at GameStop the other day and sitting on one of their top shelves was the live service Avengers game. That's a time bomb just waiting to ruin somebody's day. While these 3 points may not seem like much, it's a step in the right direction to keep gamers informed and consumers secure. Because I don't want to accidentally buy a live service game that's already been shut down. And if the majority of a game has been developed by AI, why should any of us buy it for the same price as one that's been created by actual people? I'm willing to wager that many of you feel the same way. So the link to the petition is down in the description. I hope you enjoyed the video and thank you for watching. I honestly wish nothing more than the best for our community and the industry. And I hope that the next 10 years are some of the best for us. But whether or not those next 10 years are greatly depends on us. Until then though, be safe, be well, be kind. Bye-bye.